Show up and make a difference, living in a state of flow. I get stuff done and I have fun. It's my time and I'm the one. I'm strong, I keep growing, I take life on and I keep going. So wake up and say, why not me? Believe in possibility and stay open to the magic every day. Welcome to the Business Renovator.
Build a business buyers compete for. Quite a concept, right? Welcome to the Business Renovator. I'm your host, Coach Phil. If you're here live, thank you for being here, fitting us into your schedule. And if you're catching us on a replay, remember #replay. Let us know where you're watching us from. To everybody, if you would like, subscribe, and share, and also comment, give us feedback. Is there somebody you would like to have on the show? A friend, an associate? Make an introduction. We're happy to share the word. Anyway, I am excited to be here today. I get to play in the fields. Well, not really, but I get to talk to a fellow who has that as a name. So it's kind of like playing in the fields. So let's be goofier and let's get the show on the road so we can have as much time with Howard in the fields. So here we're going to be, like we talked about already, build a business buyers compete for. What a concept. Real strategy, real profit, real freedom. Today, I'm joined by, as I mentioned, Howard Fields. He's the CEO and managing advisor at Business Profit Advisory. He works with ambitious small and mid-market business owners who want more than just growth. They want alignment, they want value, they want a business that can run without them. Through steady strategic realignment, Howard helps leaders accelerate profit, serve more clients, and build companies they can eventually sell or step away from. If you care about building enterprise value, not just revenue, this conversation is really for you. Howard, I'm bringing you up, buddy. Here you come. Welcome to the show. And I'm grateful that you're able to fit us into your crazy, ridiculously busy schedule.
Yeah, me too. Thank you very much, Phil. I'm very happy to be here. Thanks.
Did I miss anything on the intro that relevant for what we're going to talk about today? Which is
that's a kind of a written intro. You know, what I would simply tell folks about me is my career has spanned Fortune 100 to SMB and mid-market to startups. And so the real benefit to your audience is there's very few problems I haven't seen or been asked to solve over the years in business. I tend to view businesses through, three basic lenses or primary lenses, kind of a systems thinking approach, which is an end-to-end view that, depending on who you're talking to, if you're in a startup that engineers have built, you often find that they're very focused on the technology, right? It's the technology that's going to be the win. I tend to always bring the view that not only do you need the technology, you need the understanding of the customer. And I'll push it all the way back to you need the understanding of what the buyer's going through, what the buyer's journey is, because many buyers never become customers. And if you can figure out how to fix that problem, you end up a lot more successful. So systems thinking, I then focus on people and communications, and because that's where most of the problems are in organizations of any size. And then I'd cap that with innovation and adoption of emerging tech, because that's the driver that causes lots of change. So that's kind of the reality of how I spend my time.
So that's current reality, which is cool. And I'm glad you shared that. I want to back up a little bit. How the hell did you start in this crazy world? Where did it all begin for you?
Well, like most of us, I was born at an early age, right? Let's see. I would. There's a couple of drivers. Number one, I was a musician from before I was born, according to my mom, and anything that moved music along, technically, was something that I was interested in. So when synthesizers first came out in the 1970s, and I was writing music, composing, and performing in college, well, okay, that basically was digital technology. I then sold audio equipment, right? Again, music related. And when it came time to figure out what I was going to do with my life, computers and PCs were just beginning to be talked about. And I realized that was kind of the same kind of technology I was looking at in music. And so it was kind of a natural attraction for me. That took me into a long, multi-decade career with IBM. And then I guess I worked with customers of all sizes over the years. Even at IBM, we had startups that we worked with. They were perhaps bigger than the 1 or 2 man startups I work with today at times, but the issues, the challenges were the same. And when it came time to end my stay with IBM, I gave it a lot of thought and concluded that ultimately I wanted to work in an environment where decisions could be made more quickly than in a large company. So that's what led me into working with small business owners and mid-market companies, because while you had some of the same problems and I could apply a lot of the lessons, we could get through it faster and drive impact sooner.
Is there a correlation between your passion for music and your passion for helping business owners, entrepreneurs in the markets you play in? I don't mean play, but if you're having fun doing it, it is like play, right?
Well, quite frankly, I mean, there's nothing more fun than watching the light go on in somebody's head because you've found a metaphor to explain something technical to them that they can, that they finally understand what it's all about. I mean, a great example. I taught a lot of folks in their 50s and 60s how to use their PCs to do very specific things. So most recently, everybody wants to understand generative AI. And so one of the first things I tell folks who are not familiar with it is they are familiar with Google. So I say in Google, the goal is throw up a couple of keywords and see what you get, right? Scan through it and you'll find what you're looking for. The difference with generative AI is you need to be more specific. In fact, the more specific you can be, the better the answer you're going to get from your search. And as soon as they understand that, that's like lesson number 1 of understanding the difference between a Google search and what we now do with generative AI.
What I like about that is a whole bunch of things, but it ties into the starting point of a business, whether it's the beginning of the business, or if it's a revamping of the business. Current reality, where are they today and where do they want to be tomorrow? Because if we don't have a port to sail to, any port we go to will be okay. Well, might be happy, might not be. But if we want to be strategic about it, having a starting point and an end point is a really important piece. And I think, I'm not a musician. Well, I've dabbled, but not to the level you have. I sold my car and bought a keyboard. I used to wish I had bought a guitar because it would sound way better. It would be like, hey, I sold my car and bought a guitar, but that's not my story. So I dabbled in music a little bit. So I have a little bit of an understanding. But the passion and energy into creating a piece of music, just a tune, going from, it has a start and it has an end and it has a middle. So I think what you and I do, metaphorically, is we help people with the music, their tune in their business, but in a different score. That was pretty good, I thought.
That was very good. Very impressive, Phil.
Thank you. It kind of correlates, doesn't it?
Yeah, I would modify what you said in one small way. I think one of the dirty little secrets of the information technology business, having seen multiple business cycles in it, is that you're never really finished, right? A lot of what comes out technology-wise, it's not a new problem. You're still trying to solve the same problem you were always trying to solve. What we end up with are better ways to solve it, more efficient, more productive ways to solve it. And so you're always in the middle of a cycle on that. And it's one of the important differences between how people accept new technology, right? A lot of people, if they didn't take a job when they came out of college that required the use of computers 40 years ago, well, the only reason they would know a lot about computers is if they were hobbyists. They had an interest in it. And so the technology moves forward and they feel somewhat further and further behind as time goes on. So the challenge is to bring them along in this. But that's my key point. Yes, we can help someone do it better today, but there'll always be a better tomorrow.
So here, Patrick chimed in and put his thoughts here. What are your thoughts about this?
So this is the always use the small words to explain complicated strategies and business cases. Yeah, I would say if you can, you've got to think of who your audience is. You got to understand your audience and what their reference points are, what their context is. And if you can do that, then you will in fact communicate more effectively with them, and they will not only learn more, but they'll retain more because they can relate it to stuff they already know.
Something that I learned from some guy named Brian Tracy, and that was if you were to write your missions and purpose statement in 29 words or less in a language that was grade 9 level, people would remember it, understand it, and retain it. Don't overcomplicate things.
Yeah, there's always this discussion of what's the right reading level to produce any document at. And again, you got to know your audience. If you're doing it to PhDs, they're going to expect one level. If you're doing it to the general public, they're going to relate much better to something at an earlier grade level. So yeah, very important.
And all of that would help to support the topic of today, build a business buyers compete for. So if you're going after the academically astute, speak in their lingo. And if you're going after a blue collar worker who's a blue jean millionaire, speak in their language. They're not ignorant. They just resonate differently with different words, right?
Mm-hmm. They're also you might run across somebody who hasn't had a business education, but they're an expert at running their business.
Yeah.
They have the practical knowledge of how to operate their business. And frankly, you will probably come across very negatively to them if you start talking in a language they don't understand or they're not trained in.
So rapport would be very apropos.
Absolutely. Always.
Yeah, absolutely. Somebody posted something somewhere this morning and it resonated with me because it's one of the things I do. And I forget what they said, but what the message was around trust. And I responded with the real currency of commerce today is trust, which is rapport. Right? I might trust you to help me with my marketing, but I wouldn't trust you to take and extract a tooth. Different levels of trust, right?
Yeah, this is it's a really key point. And again, back to the generative AI stuff and the general artificial intelligence and ultimately the super intelligence that is being discussed as accelerating at this point in time. I've always lived around that word trust, right? My familiarity with AI comes from the fact that back in the 1990s, I was a director of marketing who launched speech recognition products. And I did the demos and I talked to the customers. And I figured out very quickly that you could get it to do some things very well. But just like you said, there are things you would never trust it to do.
Yes.
Right. And so my emerging technology bonus question for folks is always, So when will this be fully trustworthy? Because, would you trust we have robotic surgery techniques today that are operated by human beings. When will you trust AI to do your aortic valve replacement, right? I would say most of us are not there. And as much as we talk about the acceleration of all this technology, it's going to be a while before the bulk of the population can get to a point of trust.
That reminds me of an experience I had when I was selling new homes. One of my clients was an engineer with a company, Ward Air. They're not around anymore. But he gave me a tour of a 747 that I'd never had before. It was like the undercarriage, and got to sit in the cockpit. We weren't flying anywhere. And he explained to me some stuff, like the radar in the nose of the plane. If they turned it on, it would be devastating for it. I go, whoa, crazy stuff. But he also was telling me back then, and that was in the 80s, early 80s, that they had the technology that the plane could land and take off itself. The issue was the 5-letter word we're talking about.
Yep.
Passengers didn't trust it, even though it could do it.
Well, and that was, if I remember correctly, what the court case, or I don't know if it was actually a court case, but when we had the miracle on the Hudson where Captain Sully landed the plane, right? And they were trying to blame it on pilot error, right? And it was him steadfastly looking at the facts and presenting the facts that caused everybody to come off this belief in technology and back to the fact that, you know what, it's really not ready to be fully trusted yet. So yeah, this occurs in many scenarios. Yeah,
and if you're using AI tools these days, if you're just leveraging it, I'm not saying, don't want to say superficially, but if you're not paying attention to what it's saying and you trust it, you can get your, as they say, knickers in a twist.
Well, yeah, and there have been plenty of humorous, because it didn't happen to us, kind of scenarios about that have been presented in the media. But I want to be clear. I believe that technology always marches forward, right? And ultimately, what we're doing with AI today, assuming we don't make a wrong step and destroy humanity, which is another whole debate that's going on here.
Yes, I have heard that.
Right? Assuming we control it appropriately, it will ultimately be foundational to the computing platforms of the future. What I sometimes am cautious about is the sale of the ultimate benefit when we can really only deliver the moderate benefit, the middle benefit today. And so it's important that everybody understands we're past the time that you can ignore this. If you're not learning about how to use this and how to where it fits in your business and how it can actually change your business performance, you're definitely missing a beat. And all the agentic AI stuff is pushing very, very quickly forward on that. But there are limits to what it's really capable of today.
So what's it got to do with the title of our talk today? Build a business that buyers compete for.
Well, there's a couple of things. So if you kind of look at where I'm spending my time these days, right? I'm definitely focused, as I said, on small and mid-market businesses, and I tend to look for problems that businesses have that are kind of universal, regardless of what industry they're in. I look for challenges that cut across. So the people I mentioned before, the folks who really understand how to run their business, right? Because they've grown up in it. They operate a stable business, but they spend all their time running it and they don't have a lot of time to work on it.
That's the in-it business model, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so when new things happen, or when AI gets to the point where some of it can be utilized in the business to create better productivity leverage, they don't know about it because they don't even, they don't have time. And the net of that is it builds fear and panic ultimately.
So you said when it comes to that level, it's already there. I've got clients that told me they're large corporate clients. I mean, $1 billion entity. They go down to the U.S. or a Canadian company, go down to the U.S. and hang out with, Johnson Control guys. And they've got people that are telling them, hey, what you can do on the weekends is you can use AI to take inbound calls to provide the service. So it's those kind of things are already happening. And if you're not learning to integrate it into your business, you're losing a competitive edge, aren't you?
Absolutely. And I use the word to be more generic, more inclusive. The businesses everybody feels are safe are, the home services businesses, the HVAC, the electrical, the landscaper, whatever. But if you are following those industries and are watching what's going on with the dexterity of the robots that are being built, and you're somebody who understands emerging technology, what's coming, right? Even those types of jobs are going to be affected by these technologies.
Well, one of the things excuse me, that I'm familiar with in and around that is I don't know if it's AI specific, but it's in that line of elevating technology to provide better service, lower costs and higher profitability. Profit's not a bad word, everybody. It's actually, without that, we're out of business. And that is the ability to diagnose remotely and often provide the fix remotely if they don't have to physically put something in it, with that remote diagnostic tools that are available from many manufacturers. So the technicians need to become more sophisticated in their technology. I was blown away at how complicated HVAC is. Heating, ventilation, air conditioning. For those that don't know, I used to take it for granted. I've been dabbling in it now for about 14, 15 years. Not as a technician, but as a provider of services for them, an outside vendor. But in my own home, when I think about how I take it for granted, and I only care about it when it's minus 40 and my furnace stopped, then I care. And then I'm reaching out desperately instead of strategically.
Well, exactly. And you're willing to pay more, which everybody knows. And they charge you.
Yes, willing, but not necessarily happier to pay more. But yes, it's freaking cold, so I want to fix it.
But I would contend you ain't seen nothing yet, right? Yeah. Because for one of my clients, we're looking at the whole discussion around indoor air quality in the home and commercially. And the ability exists today to drop, a hardware card into an HVAC system with sensors on it at a relatively low price to monitor things like mold, things like mycotoxins, right? All the things that cause hidden problems that you might not even realize why you don't feel well. That's an industry that's going to be profoundly impacted by these technologies. And you're right, the remote capabilities, I mean, this is from the beginning of the internet, what we saw was the ability to connect to things remotely was the key to a lot of improvements that you wanted to make. I worked on a project once where we had to monitor, it was deep sea wells, right? Deep sea oil wells. And they needed to monitor whether water was seeping into the oil because that changes the efficacy of the well. And how did we do it? Well, we had stuff that we had to put in the well that had to withstand the heat. That talked remotely to the wellhead, which then talked to the satellite, which then talked back to the home base, so to speak. So we've always seen for most people, they've experienced the challenges with that when they go on a cruise and they try and check their email, because that's all been satellite email, and it runs really slowly compared to what everybody's used to. So yeah, always more problems to solve.
Absolutely. It takes me back, and we're running out of time, so I want to land this on your website and a few things. But it takes me back to being a kid from a foreign country called England. And when we wanted to make calls back home, Mom and Dad would have to send not an email, but a letter in the post, set up a time that when they're going to make the call. So everybody was there, and it was an astronomical amount per minute. So, we were a blue collar family. Pennies were important, but so was family connection. Now we do it like WhatsApp and FaceTime and email. I mean, it's just crazy what's going on. Speaking of what's crazy, not you, but sharing who you are, where people can get hold of you, is one place. And the other place is, I'm going to bring this up so that everybody can see us, or at least you. That is you and your LinkedIn page. And because this is so small on the live stream here, you can see where my cursor is up there. That's hard to read. So for all of us that need to have help with reading, LinkedIn.com in Howard Fields. Howard, anything you want to say about this? I mean, you welcome anybody reaching out to you.
Look, I have a variety of skills. I've done execution sides of business and strategic foresight and business alignment. I've got multiple businesses that I'm involved in where I help small and mid-market companies. And so a lot of that is there for people to see. I would invite them to hit the page and check it out. I will say, though, that when it comes to the Business Renovator discussion, there really are three things that I'm helping business owners with today. And one is, helping them get their time back. So for folks who run based on their pragmatic knowledge of their business, that's how I help them. There are those who are scaling, maybe above $25 million and up, where the business owner is seeing early signs of chaos and perhaps a slowdown in decision making because they don't have all the processes they need, but they have more people that have a say-so. There I do a lot of work in helping them align. And then last but not least, I've got folks who run family businesses, particularly boomers, who are beginning the thought process of stepping away from the business, transitioning the business to their kids. And I don't do succession planning. I have lots of partners that do that. But the cheapest time to figure out what to do with your family dynamic is way up front, right? 2 or 3 years before you're trying to figure out what your next move in life is going to be. And I find it's very helpful for business owners to chat about that. So those are some of the things I'm working on today.
And this is one of the websites that you have, so people can go and check you out there and get some really, really great content and information.
Yep. Thank you. I appreciate you putting that up.
Hey, if I was to ask you, or if somebody was to ask, it's me, I'm going to ask you. So what's one thing you'd like to share with our audience today? One gem or a nugget?
Well, I always think about this from the standpoint of things that I've learned that tends to surprise my clients. And there's really two things that always come up. When we're talking about building profit into a business, it is really heavily dependent on effective differentiation of the business. And perhaps even more so than the financial management or even the technology. And that's an interesting discussion to have, as I started with, when you're talking to engineering types. But what clients tend to value most about me is my ability to define and or refine their differentiation in ways that truly address customer pain points as they evolve, right? That's what ultimately creates sustainable profit, being able to move with the market and with the pain points. So that's one thing. And the second is that if you're willing to look deeply enough at your business and at your clients, you can almost always find a less crowded, less noisy market to be in. So for anybody who has read the Blue Ocean Strategy book by Renee Mabourin and W. Chan Kim, they talked about this years ago. You can almost always find a more blue market to be in than the noisy and crowded marketplaces everybody tends to chase. And that's a way to make profit more with more ease.
That's a bucket load of gems. I appreciate your over generosity. That's kind of just like you. And again, thanks for being an esteemed guest and on the Business Renovator, and adding some additional value to those who get the opportunity to take time to have a listen to us, particularly you, on this episode of the Business Renovator. Again, thanks for being here. I'm grateful for you hanging out with me, and I'll see you in a few seconds.
Perfect. Thanks. Appreciate it, Phil.
See you in a bit. Another episode has come to an end. One of the things I don't like about the show, yes, there is one thing I don't like about the show, is it actually ends. But we will be back on another topic with another guest. The journey of the people in the world around life and business, sales and marketing is just unbelievable. The human race is amazing. The potential we all have is absolutely wonderful. I do that every time. So the you in wonderful represents you. You're unique. I'm unique. We're all wonderful. So I encourage you. I inspire you. I ask you. I declare for you that you go and be your wonderful self. And until next time, we'll see you on another episode of the Business Renovator.
That's it for another The Business Renovator. To the magic.